Men are good, as are you. And yeah, today we're going to talk about victims. We're going to talk about victims. You know, when I was a little guy, no one wanted to be a victim. I mean, that was the last thing you wanted to be, was a victim. And people strove to look like they were, doing okay. They were strong and whatever. And this victim thing was something no one wanted to be. But fast forward into 2021, and what do you get? You see that now victimhood has become something that's almost a norm for some groups. Pretty strange transition, and pretty dramatic transition at that. I mean, where do you see this? Think about feminists. You see feminists vying for being the biggest victim, and time after time they look at all the different ways that they're victims. And of course, this is happening at the same time they're saying they're powerful, they're strong, but we're victims. Okay, so where else do you see it? Oh gosh, the identity politics. What do you see? You see victim after victim after victim. People try and be as many types of victims as they can because it seems as though the more victim you are, the more power you have in this identity politics world. Those people who have the most victim credentials are the ones that are seen as the most powerful. It's like, this is bizarre. It's backwards. And then you got your SJWs. It's the same kind of thing where they're looking to be a victim. Very, very odd. And in some ways, the researchers don't say this. We're going to talk about some research today, but the researchers don't say this, but I do. It's as if what they're talking about is the addiction to being a victim. Not just being a victim, but it's the addiction to this whole attitude, this whole stance of being a victim. And the researchers came up with this study. It's called The Tendency Towards Interpersonal Victimhood, where they looked at people who had this tendency towards seeing themselves as victims. And it's very, very helpful for men to know about. Why? Because knowing this kind of thing is going to help you in relationship. If you can see it coming, you can dodge it. If you don't see it coming, you're finished. Another piece of this is, it looks to me like this is really a way to kind of categorize relational aggression. Because relational aggression, as we all know, is this way to bully without violence. You're bullying people without violence. The more masculine mode of getting what you want is to bully with force, right? But the feminine way is to bully without violence. False accusations, gossip, eye rolling, ostracization, not being around someone, all those kinds of things. And this is actually, I think, a side of that, a kind of side of that, where the manipulation comes from being seen as a victim. And we'll get into a little bit of that as we go along. But let's look at the research itself, which is pretty interesting stuff. The researchers came up with this study, and let me read you what they say about it. In the present research, we introduce a conceptualization of the tendency for interpersonal victimhood. They call it TIV, which we define as an enduring feeling that the self is a victim across different kinds of interpersonal relationships. Okay, an enduring feeling. This is something that stays with someone. This is not a once in a while kind of thing. This is an enduring feeling that stays with someone, that they are victims in one way or another. Now, they went on to say it has 4 dimensions. One dimension is the need for recognition. Second is moral elitism. 3 is the lack of empathy. And 4 is rumination. Okay, now we're going to go through each one of those one by one and tell you what the researchers are looking at and what they've concluded about each little section there, because it's pretty interesting stuff. Okay, so the first one is recognition. Now, what are they talking about when they say recognition? What they're saying is the need for recognition refers to victims' motivation to have their victimhood acknowledged and empathized with. So these people have a need to have people acknowledge their victimhood. And if you don't acknowledge that victimhood, you may be in trouble. And we've seen this over and over and over again with feminism, right? I mean, just think about it.
Anyways, I'm not done. Not done. Shut the fuck up. Feminists do not want you. Shut the fuck up.
Now, that's kind of an extreme example, but it gives you a general idea because all of us have had the experience of saying to a feminist, well, no, this doesn't make sense because of this, and this, and kaboom, they blow. They need to be recognized for their victimhood. And if they're not recognized, it's a powder keg. And their identity, basically, is connected with their sense of being a victim. This is the enduring feeling they're talking about, is that one's identity gets connected in with the sense of being a victim. So it's a dangerous place. It's a dangerous place indeed. The researchers did something interesting. They differentiated between narcissism and TIV, because they say the two are very, very different. They say that narcissism is based on inflation. A narcissist sees themselves as bigger than. They see themselves as blown up. They see themselves as better than. And when someone questions whether they're better than, you get narcissistic rage, right? But their rage is based on someone not understanding that they are superior in many ways, right? Now, the TIV people, they went on to say, are not based on inflation. They're based on deflation. So they're based on a sense of weakness. Here's what they say. The self-presentation of high TIV individuals is that of a weak victim who has been hurt and is therefore in need of protection. They go on. Threats to high TIV individuals are related to anything that can undermine their self-image of moral superiority or elicit doubts from their environment as to whether the offense occurred, the intensity of the offense, or their exclusivity as victims. In other words, anything you question about whether they're really a victim or not is going to be a real problem. And they're coming to the table from a sense of weakness, not a sense of strength. It's a very important difference to notice. So, the people who are narcissistic are going to come from a position of feeling like they're better than, and the people who are TIV are going to come from the position of feeling weak. Interesting, right? I remember when I was a little guy, my father used to tell me, when I'd get really upset about something, he'd say, no event is as important as your attitude towards it. I didn't like hearing that very much when I was little, but the more I grew, the more I understood, holy crap, he's right. Because our way of looking at things, our attitude, just makes a tremendous spin on what we see. And if we can look at our own attitude first, sometimes we can change things in a different kind of way and we don't get so daggone upset. But these people completely missed that. They did not have my father, and it's too daggone bad they didn't, because they would know that it's their attitude that is actually a big part of this. And if they can check out their own attitude first, they're in much better position to come out with calmness and feel relaxed. But I don't think that's their motive so much. So that's number one. The first thing is you got to be recognized as being a victim, right? But you come to it from a place of weakness. Okay, so the first one's recognition. Recognition. You got to recognize that the person is a victim. The second one is moral elitism. Now, we really don't have to say much about that because the name says it all. Moral elitism. These people feel like they are morally the best. They are beyond reproach. Look at the angel sitting up there. She's a little victim. She's a beautiful, perfect, pure little angel who's sitting on a mountain of trash. And we've seen that before someplace. Feminism, SJWs, identity politics. This is moral elitism. Listen to what the researchers say about it. Moral elitism refers to the perception of immaculate morality of the self and the immorality of the other side. Oh, the immaculate morality of me, I'm immaculately moral, and the immorality of everyone else. Yeah, that pretty much says it all, right? At the individual level, moral elitism may be used to control others by accusing them of immoral, unfair, or selfish behavior while seeing oneself as highly moral and ethical. Here's what the relational aggression comes in. They are manipulating based on this moral elitism, right? They're trying to get others to do what they want. This is not a good thing. And let's see. Similarly, collective victimhood is based on beliefs about the justness of one's group's goals and positive image while emphasizing the wickedness of the opponent's goals and characteristics. So this is moral elitism. Now, have we ever seen this in our present day? The Washington Post printed this thing that, why can't we hate men? No one batted an eye. This is the assumption from feminists, this one smug one right there, who's saying, why can't we hate men? Why can't we hate a birth group? In other words, our group is so morally superior, we are so far above anyone else, that we should be able to hate a birth group. Someone's born and we can hate them. We are so superior. I mean, that's absolutely bizarre if you ask me. Pretty strange. So moral elitism basically demands being seen as a white hat and all the bad guys as being black hats. Okay, and third on the list for the researchers is empathy. And they're very clear about this. They say someone who has a lot of need to be recognized as a victim doesn't really have much time or mental space to be considerate and loving towards others. Their empathy is very, very low. Here's what they say. Lack of empathy refers to an oblivious reaction to others in general and to their suffering in particular. Empirically, victimhood was found to increase the sense of entitlement to behave aggressively and selfishly. Woo, doggies. So what they're saying is that, by considering oneself a victim in totality, being addicted to that idea, empathy goes out the window. There's no room for it. And in the process, it basically gives people the sense that they can be aggressive and they can be nasty. Ooh, have we seen that before with feminists? Lack of empathy. Now let me think. Have we seen that before with feminists? They're going to drink male tears. Do they have empathy for men? No. Male tears give me life, she says. I bathe in male tears. Male tears. Delicious. Yeah, does that sound empathetic to you? No, it sounds pretty cold to me. And I think that's exactly what the researchers are talking about. The sense of not having a shred of empathy towards someone else because they're so completely caught up in their own idea about them being a victim. Ay. Crazy stuff. The researchers also found that the TIV people were usually connected to a style of attachment called the anxious attachment style, which is, it's an interesting thing for them to point out because attachment style is something we get when we're little. When we're little and our parents take care of us, and those parents who are consistently loving and there to meet our needs and whatever, they produce children who have what they call secure attachment styles. And that means that they're going to trust people, they're going to believe the best in people, etc. But the child who gets inconsistent parenting, inconsistent and sometimes not there and sometimes there, ends up sometimes being what they call an anxious attachment style. It's a child who's pretty anxious about things. And in fact, one of the things they found is that the anxious attachment style tend to be clingy and they tend to be worried about being abandoned. Have we seen that one before? I think we have. But the anxious attachment style is important for us to think about for a couple of reasons. One is, guess what we've had for the last 50 years? We've had fatherless homes. When you got a father in the home and a mother in the home, when you have both parents, it's much more likely that the child's needs are going to be met, by someone. You do it. No, you do it. That's the way it works. And then one of them says, okay, I'll do it, right? But when you have one parent, a single mother, for instance, she can't do it. She doesn't have anybody to say, you do it this time. I'm exhausted. So she bails out. Not only that, but think about it. Daycare. What happens in daycare? The children are surrounded by people who don't really love them. It's pretty simple, really. So they probably get inconsistent parenting, quote, parenting, right? So from daycare, from fatherless homes, from single mothers, etc., have we grown a crop of people who are basically having this attachment style that's anxious and therefore being more likely to move into this lack of empathy place? I'm guessing yes, but you decide for yourself what you think. Now the last one is rumination, and we'll get to that right now. Okay, the last one is rumination. Rumination, and we've got someone who needs to be recognized for being a victim. Someone who feels they're morally elite, they're above everybody else. They completely lack in empathy. But the last piece the researchers talk about is rumination. And man, it's a doozy. And just for your information, the research is pretty clear that women tend to ruminate more than men. But let's hear what the researchers say about rumination and what it does. Finally, rumination refers to a focus of attention on the symptoms of one's distress and its possible causes and consequences rather than its possible solutions. So they're saying that they tend to focus on the problem and not focus on anything related to solutions. But they go on to say that this rumination thing is repetitive. It goes on and on and on. So the sense of victimhood, the sense of being hurt, the sense of being somehow victimized just repeats over and over again. It becomes ruminated just over and over and over. And this has a lot of different consequences. Here's what they say. It perpetuates distress and promotes aggression, lowers forgiveness, and increases desire for revenge. Man, that's a mouthful. Think about that. It makes a lot of sense now how the feminists seem like they feel completely entitled to bash men and to hate men and to do negative things to men. And this is a part of what these researchers are finding, is that this rumination piece tends to expand out the whole TIV syndrome and lock it in so that people feel they are entitled to immoral behavior. I think that was one of the things researchers said was TIV gives entitlement to immoral behavior. They also talked about with the TIV, they assume negative intentions of the offender. Oh boy. And of course, forgiveness goes out the window, along with an increased sense of revenge, wanting to take revenge and feeling entitled to take that revenge. I'm absolutely entitled to take this revenge and to do immoral things because I am so elite in my morality. And they are so bad, and I've been hurt so bad that they need to pay the price for this. Ooh, doggies. So rumination is like the engine that keeps this whole thing together. It drives it, it pulls it together. It gives one this sense of being an entitled victim. That's the bad news. And the whole thing's the bad news, really. But think about it. Have we perpetuated this kind of thing with our culture? I think we have. Because look at what we teach girls. Just look at what we teach girls. We teach them that they're victims, that they've been oppressed by men and boys, and that they're entitled to have it all now, and the boys need to sit back and let them have something. It's like we're teaching them to be victims. We're teaching them to be able to get this sense that they deserve it all, and this other group deserves less. So in some ways, I think we're pulling ourselves into a position where we're perpetuating this stuff. And of course, we teach the boys that what? We don't teach them that they deserve more. We teach the boys that they are the problem. What a crazy place we're living in, where we teach one sex that they're the problem and the other sex that they're entitled to be nasty because they've been oppressed by that other sex. That's some crazy stuff. Well, that's all the bad news. And the good news is, what the heck can you do about it? As a man, what can you do in relationship? How can you use this information? And the first thing, and probably the most important thing, is use the acronym TIV. If you see this kind of behavior in your spouse, lover, friend, whoever, male or female, say to them, do you maybe have TIV? Ask them in a nice way, don't go, yeah, fucking TIV, baby. Maybe could this be TIV? They're going to go, what's TIV? You say, well, it's all about being a victim. You can look it up. Look it up on the internet. Just type in TIV, victimhood, and see what comes up. Put them on the defensive. Because for years and years and years, men have been put on the defensive. You're a pig. I'm not a pig. I'm this, I'm that. Why are you saying that? We've gotten toxic masculinity. They put men on the defensive. They have to defend themselves for being men. That's crazy. So what you need to do is use the TIV and force them to defend themselves. Say, no, that's not me. I'm not TIV. This is this and this is that. But it puts them in a position where they have to defend themselves. So use the acronym. Be aware of what's around you. Be aware of relational aggression. Again, I'll leave a link below to the video I did on relational aggression. It's very important for men and boys to learn about this because it's something that they have to deal with on a regular basis. And the other thing is, know that you are probably a good man as you are. You've been taught, you've been pummeled with this idea that there's something wrong with men. And, bask in the idea that maybe you're okay the way you are. Maybe that's enough for today. Enough about victims anyway. So you all take good care and just keep in mind, men are good, as are you. We'll see you.